record on this computer. All right, so I'm going to share my screen quickly. So we were talking about these endpoints with Express and using Postman. So when we're working with Express and we're doing a simple GET request, remember what I had a problem with was my port number wasn't right. So it has to be the right port number, 8083, and I trigger a greet. Greet request, and we get this back right in the 404. You can see the headers again. Status code is 304 not modified, simple read-only request, and it's a text HTML. But as you notice inside the browser, we don't have a post, delete, or some type of put way of triggering that. So we could certainly code some JavaScript or jQuery or something like that, or even React to trigger that kind of call. But I mean, if we don't have a UI, we can always use this client that we talked about, Postman, right? So this triggers requests. So on the basic level, we have GET requests that we're triggering, but now we have option to do put, post, and delete. So in the same way, each one of those will be triggered. You know, if I do a delete request, it'll say, okay, delete is received from the server through Express, right? Using those HTTP verbs that come along with it. I think we had to put, I believe. So we're capturing that across the wire. And for the second part here, when we're actually using body parser, which is a Express middleware, you know, we would use post, say we would use it in this way, but we could actually use this tab here called body, right? And we can also change this content type to JSON format or whatever we need to. But inside of the body part here, you know, you would add what the payload might look like when you're sending that across the wire. So if you were to send that across the wire, it would come across, you know, if you look at, let's see if I have the header information or some of the results here, but basically on the back end, it's going to be the body of this request will be a JSON object. It's going to be passed to the backend server that you can capture with your you know, on the request.body, you'll be able to actually to view that information. So you can build this out. This is inside of the post only. You're not going to get that in the request, right? Because the request doesn't have a body, so it's just a GET request query string. You know, delete and some of these other options where you're going to be, you know, passing an ID or you're going to do something with some type of parameter. That's how you're going to fill it out. That's how you're going to use these other methods, these other HTTP API calls, right? You're going to build out that and then use that middleware called body parser to do that. So second portion of the lab, so that was that in terms of building out this API a little bit more, right? And then we're going to get into using a router. And the router is just kind of a way of organizing these, like you have a greet router that handles all the different types of routes, whether it's all of these organized in a way that you can pull them in so you don't have a huge file. But the second part was using that npm, sorry, the Express generator. So you would go in and actually run npm install Express generator. It's going to go and it's going to download that into your modules, right? You could start with a basic project, no project, even without a package.json, just an empty folder. It'll go and build out this whole list. So I already ran it. And then you would have access to Express. You could just trigger Express, or you can configure it in the way that we talked about here, is, you know, setting the view engine, setting that flag, --view equals pug, and giving it a my app folder. I actually forgot to do that, or I quickly just hit Express by accident, but it went through and it built it out in the root folder. And the default engine is called Jade. So you'll see you actually have these Jade files, right? And again, this is going back to it being a server side application. So we don't have a UI framework. The views themselves are going to be generated from the server. So if we could quickly look at the package.json to see what Express generator generated for us, you'll see it's pretty small. It generated this whole package structure with some dependencies, cookie parser. So again, it's setting it up with all this middleware, Express, Jade, Morgan. So Jade is that engine, and Morgan is like a, if you look it up, it's like a way of logging. Some nice logging if you want to do different types of things. So I tried to run it right away, and it says that some cookie parser was not found, or I think it gave me saying something about cookie parser not found. So again, I can just do another install npm I or install. It's going to look at this package.json. It's going to go and try to go and figure out what I'm missing from npm, and it's going to chug and it's going to try to go and install all that. Hopefully, see right away it said something about because I think Pug is the later version of Jade. I think that actually that's been deprecated. So I may go and actually, let's see what happened to my views. So it actually it's still Jade. So we'll see if there's a problem running it. We'll see. Well, let's actually try to run it and see what happens. So we're going to just say nodemon app.js. See if it runs. Cross our fingers. Looks like it runs. Again, we got to check the port, because if we don't have the right port, this is not going to do anything for us. So the default port is what? What is it? It's should be 3000, I would think, right? Let's check here. I would think it's default 3000. Let's check. And we can look at it a little bit. I know it's going to be a little bit of a different kind of setup. So if we go localhost 3000, cross the fingers here while it's running. All right, so it's not running. So let's take a look at the structure first, and that'll give us a little bit of example, a little indication of what it is. I think somebody's gonna let me know what it is right away. There's somebody sending me a message. So let's look at the views here and server it. I know how it sets it up. It's gonna have a server file. So here's all of our middleware or packages here. Something to handle errors. This is again scaffolded out nicely for you, right? You don't need to use it. Express, path, something about path, internal, cookie parser, and the logger is Morgan. And then nicely it sets up the routers here. You can see index router and user router. And that's going to handle our routes. And then we're going to use Express, right? And then if we quickly look at those routes, there's a route folder. And then here's our two routes that we talked about. So let's look at user.js. Now you would have chat.js and probably an event log or event. And here it's basically set up a router, and it's saying on the route, I'm going to respond with a resource, whatever that is, and I'm going to exit. So we should probably change this to maybe say, I don't know, respond with a user just for purposes. So if we do /users in the URL, it should actually give us that. The index is saying, okay, index.h is express. Okay, so but basically we're building our routes out here, and that's what these two lines are. So that's our router. We're setting up Express. Down here, we're setting our view engine to say, okay, we're going to serve up our pages, and we're going to serve up Jade pages. And these Jade pages are found in the view. So again, we don't have React. We don't have any single page application. We have these views here. So if we take a look at index looks like something like this. So if you look at it, it's kind of a different kind of template language. Again, you don't have to really code in this way, but just know what it does. So like in our route here, we could see, okay, I'm going to return back text in my response, right? And it's smart enough to know that you can it'll actually do that matching of that value here. So this title is somehow going to be mapped to this page here, title, because this is all happening at the server side, right? The server level. The routes are being served up, but they're being served up with the pages at the server level. You could actually make a request for them, but this is actually using a template engine. So just know that you can do both, right? So you can generate the pages server side, and you can also expose them as as RESTful APIs. Like you could actually call that and get that response, right? As well as this here. You would get that in the payload, which would be JSON to your client, whatever client it is calling it. So again, in index.html layout, like this is a different kind of markup called, it's a template engine, right? It'll know what to do with all of this. It has no tags. So it's a little bit of a different kind of markup than what you're used to. So that's what that is. So then we're setting up setting up our middleware Express. We're going to use a logger called that Morgan. we're going to set it to JSON, express.json. We have this URL encoding in there, and we're using another middleware thing called cookie parser, which we're just setting up. And then we're setting up our static files to be served from this public directory, which is this public directory here, which is all of our images, style sheets. There's nothing in there, just one style, right? And then we are going through here and we're setting up again, we are setting up our, so now we defined our routers up here, and now we're actually saying to Express, okay, any slash index is going to go through the index router, which is that one that's going to serve up the page, that index page. Otherwise, if we're doing, sorry, where was I? If we're doing anything with slash users, now we're going to use that user router, and that user router is just going to be, you can have that root router, so that's slash users will return this. Now, you can build this out, you know, to all of your delete, put, and all these type of things. Otherwise, you could actually say, you know, okay, maybe you wanted to get details, right? So you could say slash details, and that would respond with the user details. And that request would look something like in the URL, user slash details, right? That's what's going to handle it in the URL. Sorry, in the URL. So the router is smart enough to know that anything that has this extension is now going to look through this route path. In the same way with React had this switch statement with the cases, that's the way you can think about this, is that you're setting up your different switches, your different cases, and it's going to handle this when it comes in with this slash users, right? Now this base one here would be just slash user, right? And then you can build them all out. You know, you could have a delete on user slash details, and you can build them out this router as much as you want to. So that's setting all of that up. This is setting up all the middleware, and we're adding an error handler in case there is some kind of error handler. It's going to, again, be some type of middleware. It's going to try to capture the error and then do something with it. And then we export this app here. So what I believe this is doing, so we look at this here. So this is kind of set up a little bit differently, like the way this template engine set things up. It actually creates a www folder, www.js. So it's separating the server from the app, right? So this is actually a very good design, to be honest. It's a little different from what you've seen. So you could rename this as server, think of this as the server.js. This is all the application kind of setup here. You can see all the middleware and the routes and the Express and all that stuff. But you notice there's no setup for the server. So what they've done is they kind of created this www.js file. It includes in all of that app module, so all that's contained. And then it pulls in the HTTP because we're going to kickstart a server with all the setup. And we're doing some debugging. And then from there, we're going to go and we're going to set up the port, right? And we're going to set the port, pass that in. We're going to do and create our server using that app object. So we're creating the server with all the setup, Express, all the middleware and everything like that. It's going to be part of the server. Then we're going to start listening on it, kickstart the listener, and then set up our event handlers. And you know, they got some more stuff in here for normalizing port, and there's a lot of nice stuff in here. Nothing, it just makes you, it's just more in tune of extra stuff, error handling and things like that. But it's not anything that we haven't seen already before, just more code. But really, it's basically is creating the server and binding it to the all the application setup that you've done with Express and all of that. And let's see, I think inside of that www is going to tell us that it's on port 3000. All right, so I needed to know that. Otherwise, let's see if it runs. So it didn't seem to want to run at that point because it's giving me some kind of failure on, what was it now? So if we say, oops, sorry. I think if we said /user, will it return? Let's see. No. If we say /index, will it return? No. All right, so there's some work that I need to do on this end about this template engine runner. So, but just know it's set it all up. Let's see if it's actually running. I got it running on app.js, and maybe it's something on how I kickstarted my you can look at the package.json. What does it want us to do? All right, so right there it's saying I started it wrong. See, I started the app, so I didn't actually go through the server. So that's a good thing I looked at this. So it's expecting me to go npm run start, And what that's going to do, which makes sense to be honest, it's going to go inside of the bin, and it's going to start this one, which is the server.js, really. So that makes sense to me. So, all right, that's a good step. npm, so npm run start, just going to kickstart and run node dot, it's going to do this for me, node.bin. So now if I run this, cross our fingers, it's going to kickstart the server. It's going to say it's listening on, it may not say anything, but at least we may be knowing that if we go back there now and we refresh, there we go. It's coming back with something, which is good. 3,000, there we go. All right, so we're saying welcome to Express. That's really great. That's what we wanted. That's actually serving up the Jade file. It's saving up our template right here. It's populating that title, so we know that that's working, and that's really good. And it's getting that Express value right there. So that's great. And now we added user. So we added this other router. Now we're handling kind of like our API request. Let's see if that works, right? So we go / user. All right, so it didn't like that. So for some reason that did not like that, right? / user / details. And maybe we can look at why that didn't work. But anyhow, that's kind of, maybe it's expecting it to be one of these kind of files here. So let's see here. So go back into / users. Maybe that's what it is. / users, that makes sense. So we didn't even hit if we did wildcarding, it would hit, but we didn't hit the right URL path. All right, so now we kind of got the right response now. Now we're expecting that it's returning back just plain text, not a JSON object, just text.html. I think I went and I added another route, said details, right? Let's see if that works. All right, user responded with user details. So now you can see that it's set up to handle these routes. So anything that comes in as / user is going to go through that user router, is going to go and hit all those different routes, and you can build all of this out. And again, from the browser perspective, it's going to be in the URL, it's a GET request. If you have some interaction where you're posting or doing something inside of a form, or you have something triggering, if you did have some client like Axios, then you're going to be triggering all those delete, update, puts, and all those things. And that's where you would build out your things here, right? So when you're building your assignment, first step I would say, even if you get done all these labs today, is take your assignment 1, then start using Express. Go through Express in this way, set up your Express, start to create your routes, your routers. Create a routes folder, add a chat route, chat.js, whatever you want to call it, and then have an event log.js. Inside of that, build out some of the routes you may need. For you guys, you just need a simple get, I think. Maybe you want to add some more filtering to it, get with a parameter. In the daytime school, I actually add them to do post and update, delete. If you want to do that and get bonus marks, I'll actually allow that. You can add the CRUD operations for edit, update, delete. That's fine. I can add that in. And you build out your routes. But for the views, you're going to be calling like just get all, or maybe you can put a limit on there, whatever, paging, whatever. But basically, that's what you're going to do. And then, of course, inside of your routes, you're going to be having a callback that calls Mongoose, right? You're going to collect all the data and you're going to respond with it in some way, probably a JSON object. And you're going to wire it all up in that way. So like, if you're done these 2 sections, I would say take your project assignment 1, start to build the routers for the chat and the event logs, expose them, use Postman, try to see that you can get the JSON response and all that data back. If you get all that working, you kind of almost got a back end, and then we can talk about connecting it to the front end, right? So work on this section here is pretty much just going through the Express generator, making sure you can run it. Remembering you have to run it in this way. Actually, it's npm run start, or try that out. See that you can get it running, and then set up body parser. And body parser will go through, and you're just going to add some more to that users.js, having a post, and then you're going to use this Postman tool, and you're going to fill out the body and see if you can capture it and output it. So you're going to use Postman, use post, and then you're going to populate this payload and you can trigger it from Postman because you're not going to be able to trigger that from the browser. So unless you have some special code in there, get that far, and we'll see where we're at. And I'll come back on again. And if I need to kind of talk a little bit about, again, what the assignment looks like, and maybe talk about how you would connect the front end to the back end quickly, I can do that. I'm going to go through more in-depth example on Saturday, but let's just get there, and then we'll talk about connecting it in a little bit. All right. So I'll leave you to that. I'll be back.